Shalom Israel, Shalom, Shalom. Brother Naquam, watchman for Israel, coming back at you with these precepts and another cold cut to giving, of course, our honor and glory to Yahweh, by Shema Mashiach, Malak Bashai. Double honors to the elect elders of the house of David that's been in this truth for decades and decades, patiently waiting and laboring for the second coming of our Lord Yahweh Shai. A hearty, mighty shalom to all of the mighty men of the Most High God who are out there on the highways and byways, pushing this truth, magnifying the ministry, presenting their bodies as a living sacrifice, and enduring all things for the elect's sake. Shalom, shalom. Shalom to the men that may not be out there in the highways and byways as of yet, but they're working on it. They're getting built up in the spirit. They're praying, they're fasting, they're studying, they're being diligent, and they're abounding in the work of the Lord. Shalom, shalom. Shalom to all of the Aquath out there, the sincere sisters that are out there zealous, diligent, and on fire, moving in the spirit of our righteous foremothers. Shalom to the ancient men. Shalom to the children. Shalom to the elect of Israel scattered abroad throughout the four corners of the earth. And Shabbat Shalom to everybody tuning in live. HBK Ent, Yvette McKellar, Nigel Blends, Mark Orozco, Vernon Brody, Nadiyab, Jay, Don Israel Tamid, Benjamin Youngwolf, Shalom King, Servant 144K, Brother Azariah, Shalom, Solomon McFadden, D-Vash Branch, and everybody else tuning in and that will tune in, Lord willing. Second death, lake of fire, full understanding. We're going to dive right into it through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bashmi Abishai. The second death is found in the book of Revelation, and we're going to touch on that through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bashmi Abishai, what that means. What is the lake of fire? And we're going to touch on it through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashmi Shai on the Sabbath day. Right? This is the book of Revelation, chapter 20 and 14. And death and hell were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. So we're going to touch on the second death in order to really understand Revelation chapter 20 and 14 and what this second death is. You want to really go into this whole chapter. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to take some time, break this whole chapter down. And by the time we're done this chapter, Most High willing, the brother should have some more understanding on what this second death is and what the lake of fire is, right? So it reads in verse 15 of Revelation 20, and whosoever was not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire. So we're going to touch on the lake of fire, and we're going to touch on the second death and Revelation chapter 20, the first resurrection. There's a lot to go into through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashmi Yahushua. And we've covered this chapter, I believe. I looked for it on the Cold Cuts channel. I thought I touched on it on this channel. It was probably on the older Cold Cuts channel, or maybe even the one before that, right? But I do want to touch on this through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashmi Yahushua and just go through the precepts. The Lord said, let's get that first, right? The Lord said, through thy precepts, I get understanding, right? I thought I touched on this before through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashmi Ashad, but again, that may have been on the older Cold Cuts channel. So we want to touch back up on this topic through the spirit, right? A brother called me after, we had a call and said, he asked me some questions about the lake of fire. He asked me a few questions about the second death, really the lake of fire. So I was reluctant to go into it, through the spirit, but the Lord said in Ecclesiastes chapter 8, that no man have power over the spirit to retain the spirit, So we're just vessels of the Most High. This Psalms chapter 119 and 104, and we're going to do the will of the Most High, whether you want to or not, right? The Most High is going to put that fire in you. Psalms 119 and 104, through thy precepts I get understanding, therefore I hate every false way. So our entire understanding of anything in the Bible is going to be based off of the precepts, right? It's going to be based off of the witnesses and the prophets and the apostles and forefathers who have wrote of these things inspired by the exact same spirit, right? So you want to stick to the precepts to get the understanding when it comes to the breakdowns. It's especially Revelation, right? Especially diving into Revelation. And that's what we're going to touch on. This Revelation chapter 20 and 1. And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. So you have actual angels that have power in different events, over different elements, and actually over particular principalities, and they have jurisdiction over particular powers. This angel was given the key of the bottomless pit, right? Now, a key is used for unlocking and locking. We read about in the book of Revelation, chapter 1 and 18, that Yahweh Shai has keys, right? So Yahweh Shai has power to shut up or to open, to seal and to let loose. The same power that Yahweh Shai had over life and death, the angel was given that particular power over the bottomless pit, right? And we'll touch on that. This is Revelation chapter 1 and 18. I am he that liveth and was dead. And behold, I live. It's like I am alive forevermore. Amen. And have the keys of hell and death. So he didn't have a literal keys, like a janitor with the big ring, and you have 1,000 keys and you're fumbling through them. The keys that he had was the spirit of Yahweh Ba'Shemel Shai that was given to him for the resurrection. That's what it means, the keys of hell and death. He has the issue to send men to death and the lake of fire and destruction, and he's been given the decree of judgment to resurrect those, right? Let's go to those men. Let's go to 2 Timothy chapter 4. Let's get a precept on Yahweh Shai having the keys real quick. 2 Timothy chapter 4 and 1. I charge thee therefore before God and the Lord Yahweh Shai HaMashiach, who shall judge the quick and the dead at his appearing in his kingdom. So in the day of judgment, the Heavenly Father gave the judgment to Yahweh Shai to judge those that are alive and those that are dead. He has the keys of life and the keys of death, the keys of hell and the keys of death, those who can be resurrected to everlasting life and those who are going to be destroyed, right? So that's plain. Let's go to the book of Revelation chapter 3, right? So the angel was given a key to the bottomless pit, and all that means is he was given power by the Most High, right? He was given power by the Most High, right? This is Revelation chapter 3 and 7. And to the angel of the church in Philadelphia write, these things saith he that is holy, he that is true, he that hath the key of David, he that openeth and no man shutteth, and shutteth and no man openeth. So Yahweh Shai has the key of David. The key of David is essentially, you have the house of David, which is the elect, and Yahweh Shai has the authority to determine who's going to be saved and who's not going to be saved, right? Who's going to make it, who's not going to make it, right? Who's going to be inspired and quickened by the Spirit and who's not? Who's going to have the Spirit stay with them and who's going to have the Spirit taken away from them? Yahweh Shai could blow your candlestick out. He could bring you into this knowledge. He's been given that authority. He openeth your mind to receive this understanding, to receive instruction, and no man can shut it. Because once you have this truth, it's really not up to you to fall out the truth. It's up to Yahweh Ba'Shemel Shai. You often see people who make videos on why they left the Hebrew Israelites and why these things befell them, and they're no longer associated with, being an Israelite. You can't get mad at them. Don't really. It's of the Most High, who excommunicated them from this knowledge. The Lord opened their mind to understand it, and he shut their mind and sealed it up and sent them back in the world. And if the Lord want to shut your mind, no man can open it. See, the Lord set the bar on how much you can understand, how far you can go in prophecy, how far you can go in brotherly love, how far you can go in counsel. It's up to the Most High to open up your mind to understand the scriptures, right? So that key is for power to open and to shut, right? That's what the key is for. Yahweh Shai can open and shut the grave. He's been given that authority, and he can open and shut those who are of salvation and those who are of destruction, right? Let's go to let's go back to Revelation, the 20th chapter, right? So that's what the key represents, right? The key is, the key represents the power to open and shut. So let's go back to this. And you have angels really that have, all throughout the book of Revelation, they've been given particular responsibilities of the Most High. Remember, you have an angel that has the key to the bottomless pit. You have an angel that has power over fire. You have an angel of the waters. You have an angel that takes the altar, the coals from the altar, man. Right. So in the third heaven, John saw various responsibilities given to angels to fulfill the purpose of the Most High. Right. This Revelation 16:5. And I heard the angel of the water say, Thou art righteous, O Lord, which art and was and shall be, because thou hast judged thus. So now you see that you have the angel of the waters. Let's go to Revelation. We brought this up before, right? Revelation chapter 14 and verse 18, right? Revelation 14 and 18. And another angel came out from the altar, which had power over fire, and cried with a loud voice to him that had the sharp sickle, saying, Thrust in thy sharp sickle and gather the clusters of the vine of the earth, for her grapes are fully ripe. So the creation of the Most High, the invisible creation of the Most High, is orchestrated and physical, but it's orchestrated by the angels. The elements, right, are controlled by spirits. There's a spirit, there's an angel that has power over the fire, right? Rather it's a local forest fire, or rather it's an arsonist, or rather it's a fire by ICBM missiles. There's an angel that has authority over that fire. So all throughout the book of Revelation, you will read what responsibilities, for lack of better terms, and what power and jurisdictions the Heavenly Father gave these angels. In Revelation 20, there's another angel that has been given power over the rulership and the throne of the so-called white man. Right? That's what this means. That's what this means. Remember, in the book of Colossians, which I'm about to get, most willing, the Lord has created thrones, principalities, and powers. Right? And these thrones and principalities or powers are being controlled by the celestial entities that Yahweh Bahasham Yahushua hath created. Right? Let's get another one real quick. Let's go into that in the book of Colossians, the first chapter. Right? This is Colossians, and I want to get straight to the point. Chapter 1 and verse 16. For by him were all things created that are in heaven and that are in earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. All things were created by him and for him. So the rulership of the so-called white man would be part of thrones and dominions. The spirits that orchestrate and influence him in that region of Europe are principalities. And these are all powers. All of these invisible works of the creation are influenced and controlled by particular angels, right? That have been given regions in the earth to govern and rule. So when a so-called white man's power is at a peak, or when his power is abated, there's been an angel has power over that. Right? So you have to understand that the spiritual works of the Most High are being worked behind the scenes. So this angel had power over the rulership and the throne of the Roman Empire, predominantly the so-called white man. All right? So let's read this again one more time. And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. And I said that this is going into Europe because it is, right? The bottomless pit represents Europe. Now, the pit is a landmass, right? Let's go to 2nd Ezra 5. And the pit is also like a well, a ditch, right? And we'll go to that word in the Greek as well. Why is Europe being called the bottomless pit? Let's go to 2nd Ezra 5 first to prove that these things are land masses. Right? I know I'm moving kind of fast, but we got a lot we got to get into. Right? We got a lot we got to get into through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahasham Yahushua. Revelation 20 could be a difficult chapter if you don't know how to read it. Right? And you'll start getting all bugged out and thinking we're going to get attacked after 1,000 years, and what this 1,000 years means. Is it literal? Is it carnal? What is the second death? So there's a lot we really have to touch on So I'm moving at a relatively smooth pace, you know. So this is second Ezra chapter 5 and 24. And of all lands of the whole world, thou hast chosen thee one pit, and of all the flowers thereof, one lily. So lands in the world are likened unto pits. It just so happens that this pit is the bottomless pit. The pit that we've been given is a land that floweth with milk and honey, right? We have natural resources, we have angels. Remember, Jacob said in Genesis, the 22nd chapter, he said, "This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven." Speaking of the land of Israel. So our land is a spiritual land hedged about by angels and protected by the Most High. Whereas on the exact opposite, Esau's hand or land that the Most High allowed him to take from the Japhites is a region of evil, wickedness, demons, sorcery. That's why it's called the bottomless pit, right? So let's pull this up. Let's go into this word bottomless, right? Let's see if we can go into that word in the Greek through the Spirit. And it's really a poetic term to describe the land that the so-called white man was given. It's not a literal bottomless pit where you just falling and falling and falling and falling forever, right? We have to stop allowing Greco-Roman philosophy and mythology to influence our understanding of the Bible, right? You have to have a Hebraic ancient mind to understand the book of Revelation. You cannot, I'm gonna say this again, and I'm gonna say it a third time. You cannot have a Western Greco-Roman mindset and try to understand the book of Revelation. You'll fall every time. You have to have an ancient mind, right? And understand and really be inspired by the Spirit, but you can't think like an old white man, right? You can't think like an old white man scholar. You'll never get it. So the word in the Greek is abyssos, right? Now it says bottomless, unbounded, the abyss, right? This is all metaphoric. Europe is not a literal bottomless land, right? It's not a literal abyss. It's very spiritual, right? It reads, of Orcus, a very deep gulf or chasm, and the lowest parts of the earth used as a common receptacle of the dead, and especially as the abode of demons. So it was always used, Salakia. It was always used in a metaphoric sense to describe the wickedness of that land, right? If anybody calls the land that you dwell on a bottomless pit, that means that land has no water, it has no truth, and is full of evil and wickedness, right? So let's see. Salakia. I want to go a little bit further into this, right? Bear with me. So it's not literal, right? Here you have it again. Both as the common receptacle of the dead and especially as the abode of demons, right? And this is common terminology. You can even, what is a, right? Bottomless pit, right? This is common terminology, right? A bottomless pit, it reads something that seems to have no limits, especially in how much money needs to be spent on it, right? And that could be a land or people that dwell in the land that are never satisfied, man. They have no limits, right? It's full of demons, full of wickedness. So that's what this means, right? And there's an actual principality that's over that land where the so-called white man dwells at. There's an actual principality. We just read that there are spiritual forces at work that's over the land of Europe, right? Let's pull this up. Right, so there are actual spirits at work right, that are operating on the minds of the so-called white man, right, causing them to commit wickedness in the earth. All right, you have geographical land masses that the Most High has given nations, and you have particular regions that the Most High has assigned to demons and angels in the earth. Right? Let me get this in Deuteronomy. See, what the Most High did in the creation is he patterned a lot of things in the creation after what's in the third heaven. This is Deuteronomy chapter 32 and 8, where the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance. When he separated the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel. So there are boundaries given to particular people, and you have boundaries given particular to and responsibilities given to particular angels and spirits. Right? That's why you go to different cities. There's homosexual demons that operate and rule in Atlanta. That was the region given to those demons. Right? And that's their boundary. They can't bypass and go into another realm. That was what the Most High gave them. There are boundaries in the spiritual realm. Right? So you go to Chicago, it's a murder. There's murder demons that operate that realm. All right. You go to DC, there's human trafficking and sorcery demons that operate that. That's their boundaries. So the bottomless pit, although it's a literal land of Europe, you have to understand the spiritual context to it, that it is a land of wickedness, and it is a land of demons, and it is a land of no water, no truth. So these are fitting characteristics for the landmass that the so-called white man currently operates. And there's a principality over that land that's working on the minds of those people that cause them to go out and take over the damn known world, right? There are spiritual forces that are always at work. And we're showing you even now that there's an actual angel that has the power over the bottomless pit, who's over that principality to take the power away. That's why he has a great chain in his hand. The chain represents the restriction of power, right? And we're going to read that. And he laid hold on the dragon. This is Revelation 20 and 2. And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. Now, he didn't literally, there's no literal dragon. There's no literal serpent. He didn't bound up the spiritual demon Satan, the spiritual devil, and bound him 1,000 years. What he did was take away the power of the so-called white man. And he's been given the authority to do so. And there's nothing that Esau could do about it. There's no military might that he had. There's no wise men that he could seek counsel of, because this principality is being controlled by forces that the so-called white man can't perceive. There are forces that are constantly at work, fulfilling the divine purpose of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua. So when did this happen? And how long is 1,000 years? Well, the so-called white man's rulership was taken away when the Roman Empire fell, right? When the Roman Empire fell. Now, let's go to the book. And when did they fall? 476 AD. That's when the Western Roman Empire fell, right? They fell in 476 AD. Their last ruler was Romulus Augustus. He was the last Caesar or king of the Western Roman Empire. And once they fell, that was their power being bound up, right? Let's go to the book of Tobit real quick, right? Right. So we have to touch on the spiritual side of what's actually happening and what happened. Why did the so-called white man fall? Was it simply because of the Visigoths and the Lombards and these different Germanic tribes that took them down? Yeah, on a carnal level. But what happened on a spiritual level? Well, on a spiritual level, there were forces that were at work to take away the power from the so-called white man and to bind that power up. And we have to address the spiritual side of what happened and how that Roman Empire fell. Now, we read that spirit, the Lord bound up the power of the so-called white man. right? This is Tobit chapter 8 and verse number 3. The witch smell. When the evil spirit had smelled, he fled into the outmost parts of Egypt, and the angel bound him. You see that? So you always have had, even in the days of Tobit, in the days of Daniel, even today, you always have forces that are in opposition. There's always a just balance. See, the Most High said in Sirach 33, good is set against evil, and life against death. So it's the godly against the sinner, and a sinner against the godly. He said, look upon all the works of the Most High, and there are two and two, one against another. So all of the works of the Most High, there's a duality in the creation. There's a duality in the lights with the sun and the moon, a he and a she, a lesser and a greater. There's a duality in man. You have the righteous, which are the elect of Israel. You have the wicked, which is Esau. There's a duality in the angels. You have evil angels. You have righteous angels, right? And the Lord has given his angel authority to bound up the evil angel. And this happened on a spiritual level. Tobias was completely oblivious to the forces that were at work behind the scenes. He wasn't able to witness that. Neither was the Caesars able to witness the angel bounding up their power. Power is an actual spirit. You know, it's an actual force. And the angel bound up that force. And that's how the Romans were able to be defeated by those Germanic tribes. Now, they were bound up 1,000 years. This happened during the time of 476 AD, all the way up into the early stages of the Renaissance. Let's go into the book of 2nd Ezra. All right, so now we touched on this through the spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua. Right? This is 2nd Ezra, chapter 12 and verse. I want to get straight to the point. Right? Bear with me. Let's see. Here it is. This 2nd Ezra chapter 12 and verse number 19. I'll read 19. Right? So 2nd Ezra, the 12th chapter, goes into the Roman Empire. Right? It's going into the Roman Empire. Now, 2nd Ezra 12 and 19. From the time of the first feather, Julius Caesar, to the time of the heads, which are in power today. And whereas thou sawest the 8 small under feathers sticking to her wings, this is the interpretation. Why? Because when you read this chapter, and we've done breakdowns in this chapter before, and we may have to just do them again. This vision that Ezra saw consists of 3 elements. You have 12 feathers, you have 8 contrary feathers, and you have 3 heads. The 12 feathers are the first 12 Caesars, right? Julius Caesar, Augustus, Tiberius, Caligula, Claudius, Nero, Galba, Otho, Vitellius, Vespasian, Titus, Domitian. Those are your 12 feathers. Then you have 8 contrary feathers, which we touched on, right? And then you have 3 heads, which we've also touched on. Verse number 20. That in them there shall arise 8 kings, whose time shall be but small, and their years swift. And 2 of them shall perish, the middle time approaching. 4 shall be kept until the end begin to approach, but 2 shall be kept until the end. So 2 of these feathers perished as the middle time was approaching. These 2 feathers represent a succession of kingdoms, or rather a succession of rulers and Caesars. So from Nerva all the way up until Romulus Augustus, that's the 2 feathers. It represents a succession of different Roman emperors, right? Let's pull that up. Let's pull up a list of Roman emperors. So now we dive in. Right now, we're diving into what we call meat, right? This is meat. All right, we're diving into some meat and some deep prophecy and some history, right? So we named the first 12, right? After the 12, you have from Nerva, which is 96 AD, all the way up until when? The middle time approaching. These 2 feathers are going to be gone as soon as the middle time begins. What is the middle time? The Middle Ages, right? When did the Middle Ages begin? When the Western Roman Empire fell, right? So let's go to that, right? You have Nerva, and let's go into when Romulus Augustus, let's see, what's the last ruler? See that? So Romulus Augustus ruled all the way from October 31st, 475 AD to September 4th, 476 AD. Now, when he fell, the middle time began, right? Now, let's prove that. What is the middle time? Okay, hold on. Let me pull this up. See, now they're doing it. They switched it up. What is the middle times? Here you have it. Middle times. The medieval era, often called the Middle Ages or the Dark Ages, began around 476 AD, following a great loss of power. And we went into the spiritual side, how the Most High gave the angel the ability to bind up that power, that spirit. Following a great loss of power throughout Europe by the Roman Empire. The Middle Ages spanned roughly 1,000 years, ending between 1400 and 1450. So when it says that these two feathers are going to perish, the middle time approaching, this shows you that there was a succession of Roman Caesars that came into power. And by the time the last one was in power, the Middle Ages were beginning. That's the middle time. That's why the last emperor of the Western Roman Empire was done the exact same time the Middle Ages began. It's plain. Let's go to Job chapter 14, right? It's plain. Let's go to Job chapter 14 and verse number 5, right? Let's read this. Job chapter 14 and 5. Seeing his days are determined, the number of his months are with thee. Thou hast appointed his bounds that he cannot pass. You see that? So every empire's days are determined. Every rulership is influenced and controlled by the spirits. Read Daniel, the 10th chapter. You know, the prince of Persia, the prince of the kingdom of the Grecians. They've all been given a particular timeline of how long they're going to rule. The so-called white man. He knows that his days are determined. Don't you know that there are angels, like the Lord said, they're prepared for a year, a month, an hour, a day, you know, to slay the third part of men. So the Most High is very strategic. He's very organized, which is an understatement. Everything's very methodical. So the Lord has the rulership of America down to the second. He has it down to the second, and they can't pass that second. The Lord got the number of his months, and he appointed the bounds that he cannot pass. And he wasn't going to pass the middle time, right? That's what the scriptures say, what it say. Two of them shall perish, the middle time approaching. So by the time the Middle Ages began, that power was taken away from them. Let's also prove that the middle time are the Middle Ages with another precept, right? And that's when that power was taken away from the so-called white man, right? In that bottomless pit. Solomon spoke of the middle times, the Middle Ages. This is the book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 7 and verse number 17. So even in the knowledge that was given to Solomon, he also spoke of these things. It reads, for he hath given me certain knowledge of the things that are, namely to know how the world was made and the operation of the elements. So he knew all of the elements, and if I take this element, I mix it here, I can get an explosive here, or made this element creates water. He knew all of that. Don't let these names, Einstein and Newton, don't let that mean anything. It's old news, man. They're late. Hey, they were late to the game. All that E equals MC squared. Hey, Solomon Ben knew that, man. You know, he knew the operation of the elements. What else did he know? The beginning, ending, and midst of the times. the alterations of the turning of the sun, and the change of seasons. So he knew the beginning, Genesis and the creation, the ending, Yahweh shall returning back, and the midst of the times. That's the same thing as the Middle Ages. Solomon knew of the Middle Ages. When the power was taken away from the so-called white man, that was during the beginning of the Middle Ages. That's when that 1,000 years began, right? That's when that 1,000 years began. The Middle Ages span roughly 1,000 years, ending between 1400 and 1450, right? Most are willing, everybody understands. Now, you may say, well, how do we know that that's really talking about the so-called white man? It didn't say white man. It don't say Esau. It don't have to say Esau. Man. It don't, we say that all the time. I don't see the word Esau in there. It doesn't say Edomite, right? It doesn't say the children of It doesn't have to say that. These are aliases and alternative names that have been given to the so-called white man based off of his characteristics. He's a dragon, a violent creature. He's an old serpent. He's full of deceit and subtlety. And he's a devil, which is a deceiver. And he's Satan all at the same damn time because he's an adversary. And we're going to go to Revelation, the 12th chapter, to prove that this dragon and serpent and this devil and Satan is not talking about the spiritual demon Satan, but rather speaking about your local, friendly, neighborhood, deceptive, child molesting, so-called white man. Let's go to Revelation 20. Let's talk about it, right? Revelation 12, rather, right? This is the book of Revelation, chapter 12 and verse number 1. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her crown, upon her head, a crown of 12 stars. So this represents the nation of Israel. We're a woman. When you read Isaiah 54 and 5, right? You read the book of Hosea, the 2nd chapter, 14 on down. The Lord will speak comfortably unto her. So we're a woman, a delicate woman in Jeremiah 6 and 2 on down. And we're clothed with wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. That's the sun and the moon. Verse number 2. And you can read that in Genesis 37 and 9, right? I'm not going to be able to touch on every word and bring out 5 precepts, right? But, we may touch back on this chapter and just do a complete breakdown on the 12th chapter, right? Revelation 12 and 2. And she being with child cried, travailing in birth and pain to be delivered. So this represents Israel bringing forth the Yahweh Shai, but on a carnal level, it represents Mary delivering up our Lord Yahweh Shai. Verse number 3. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns upon his heads. And this great red dragon is the Roman Empire with their 7 heads, right? Greece and Rome and Spain and France and Germany and Russia and Great Britain, and their 10 horns. There are 10 provinces, right? In the ancient world, they had Dalmatia, right? Dacia, Belgica, Germania Minor, right? They had these different provinces that they had. But now your 10 horns represent your EU. And they had 7 crowns upon their heads because they had rulership. And his tail drew the 3rd part of the stars of heaven and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered for to devour her child as soon as it was born. Now, how do we know that this great red dragon is the so-called white man? Well, what color did the so-called white man come out? Did not he come out red all over like an hairy garment? And they called his name Esau. Is it not written in Genesis chapter 25 and 25? So yes, he's the red man. Why is he a dragon? Right? Because he is a violent serpentine creature on the earth. Right? Let's prove that he's a dragon. Right? Let's go to, there's a good amount of precepts we can go into. But let's go to Psalms 44. That's what I'm thinking of right now through the Spirit. All right? Let's prove that he's that dragon. So again, you have to read this with that ancient Hebraic mind and understand what a hyperbole is, what a metaphor is, right? We're a people that's very accustomed to symbolism, all right? Symbolic talk and hip talk, slang, you know? Hey, you call somebody a rat for a reason. Jake used to call the police pigs, you know? You might call a dude a snake. Surely you understand, right? Psalms chapter 44 and verse number 18. Our heart is not turned back. Now that our steps decline from thy way, though thou hast sore broken us in the place of dragons and covered us with the shadow of death. So the place of dragons is America. This is the shadow of death, where light is as darkness, where there's confusion, wickedness, violent enemies, military that we don't control, police department that we don't control. This is the place of dragons where we have been completely broken down and dismantled as a nation of people. And that's why the Lord calls this man a dragon, you know? So this is the Roman Empire. He came out red and he's that dragon. Verse number 4. There's nobody else in the Bible as a nation of people that's described red other than the Edomites. Verse number 4. Revelation 12 and 4. And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered for to devour her child as soon as it was born. So the tail of the dragon that drew the third part of the stars represents the military, the Roman military taking down a portion of the Israelites, predominantly Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, right? Which were the main tribes during the time of the Roman Empire, and did cast them to the earth. What did it mean he cast us to the earth? It means that we went from our glory and having sovereignty coming out of the Hasmonean Empire, and then Pompey, Julius Caesar, these different Roman emperors came in and took down the province of Judea. And we went from that Hasmonean dynasty during the days of the Maccabees, and we were cast down to the earth. Our power was taken away. Our power was taken away. That's what that means. Let's prove that. This is the book of Lamentations, chapter 2 and verse 1. To prove that being cast to the earth means your power is taken away. How hath the Lord covered the daughter of Zion with a cloud in his anger, and cast down from heaven unto the earth the beauty of Israel, and remember not his footstool and the day of his anger. So this scripture lets you know that we were cast down from heaven to the earth. Our power was taken away during the Babylonian siege. And then when the Romans came into power, they also cast us from the heaven to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered to devour her child as soon as it was born. And this happened when Herod the Great sought to destroy Yahushua, right? When he was born. Let's prove that. That's what that dragon is. We have to go through that history. Matthew, the 2nd chapter. Right? You can't just open up the book of Revelation and expect to get it without going into that history, right? This is the book of Matthew, chapter 2 and 13. And you even have to go to the beginning in Genesis, because you wouldn't know who's the red man. If you just open up the book of Revelation, you would have to read the first 25 chapters of Genesis to get it, you know? So don't be a strange man and just dive into the book of Revelation and you haven't read anything else. You'll never get it. People often ask, well, where do you want me to start? Or, where should I start? The beginning. Don't start in the book of Joshua, the 15th chapter, reading about the land given to the children of Judah, Start from the beginning. Matthew chapter 2 and 13. And when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeareth to Joseph in a dream, saying, arise, and take the young child and his mother, and flee into Egypt, and be thou there until I bring thee word, for Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. So that's in Revelation 12. The dragon stood before the woman, ready to devour her child. In Matthew 2, it's letting you know that that dragon is the Roman Empire. Herod was a client and puppet king of the Romans. And he goes back to the Edomites, Antipas or Antipater, the Idumean. Those are so-called white men, right? So we know that this dragon is the so-called white man, right? Now let's jump down to verse number 9. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. So the Lord is going to take the power away from the so-called white man. See, and that's just judgment. He that doeth wrong shall receive for the wrong that he had done, and there's no respect of persons. We just read that we were cast to the earth. Now we're reading that the judgment of the so-called white man, he's going to be cast to the earth. His power is going to be taken away from him. But he is called the great dragon. He's also called the old serpent because he has that same spirit of the serpent in Genesis, the 3rd chapter. He's called the devil and he's called Satan. That's the so-called white man for you. Let's go to Revelation 20, right? So that's vital. That's a vital part of understanding Revelation, the 20th chapter, understanding who this devil is, who this dragon is, lest the man be wise in his own conceits. Let's read it again. Revelation chapter 20 and 2. And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. So we spoke to how the principalities and these spirits are working behind the scenes. The angel was given power by the Almighty Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushua, to bind up the power and the spirit that was influencing the Roman Empire to wreak havoc on the earth. They were taken away for 1,000 years, from the time of the Middle Time starting all the way up until the time of the Renaissance. Let's read on. And during this time, you know, the so-called white man was destitute. He was destitute. And this man, you know, when Jake came into power, because during this time the Israelites were in power, right? You had the Holy Roman Empire. You had men like Charlemagne. You had these different Jake kings that came out of France and, you know, out of Spain, Germany. You had the Moors and Iberia, Portugal, and southern France and Spain. You had the Holy Roman Empire throughout Germany and other parts of France and Italy, you know, parts of Eastern Europe. So the so-called black man completely took over Europe for this 1,000 years, right? For this 1,000 years. Let's read on. And we can touch more on that another time, right? But you can read the book of Job, the 30th chapter, and really see how they were living. Revelation 20 and 3. And cast him into the bottomless pit and shut him up and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more, till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that, he must be loosed a little season, right? So the demons that were working in the minds of the so-called white man were bound up. Those are seducing spirits. You read about seducing spirits that influence the Edomite to do the wickedness that he does. 1 Timothy chapter 4 and 1. Right? 1 Timothy chapter 4 and 1. Now the Spirit speaketh expressly that in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. So there are actual demons that are created to seduce and to deceive. That's why the main purpose of bounding up the power of the so-called white man was so that he does not deceive the nations anymore. All of those seducing spirits and familiar spirits that Esau was into with his Algors and his Roman warlocks to work witchcraft and do these sacrifices, and they can get power from Satan, and all that was taken away, man. Not forever, but it says till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that, he must be loosed a little season. And you're currently living during this little season, right? He was bound up for about 1,000 years. He came back into power during the Renaissance, right? Around the 1300s, he came back into power, right? And now he's loose. He's loose. Let's go to the book of Revelation, the 12th chapter. Actually, I want Revelation, the 13th chapter. This is Revelation chapter 13 and verse number 3. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. So the Roman Empire fell, but then they were healed. When were they healed? After that 1,000 years. And they were loosed a little season. They fell around 476 AD. Then they came back into power in the late 1300s. All right. And all the world, meaning all of the nations, they wandered after the beast. The beast represents the Roman Empire. And they worshiped the dragon, which gave power to the beast. And they worshiped the beast, saying, who is likened to the beast, who was able to make war with them. Because when they came back into power, man, during the Renaissance, these devils wreaked havoc, man. You had a conglomerate of different, what's the word I'm looking for? Different missions, for lack of better terms. You had natural philosophy and science. You had the Renaissance of artwork and music. You had the age of discovery, the age of exploration. You had all these different spirits that the so-called white man was into, and it allowed them to conquer the whole earth. And the nations knew they couldn't make war with them, right? So they were bound up for the time of the dark ages. And again, during that time, Jake was in power, man. We discussed that all the time. You have, let's see. You had, these are coat of arms for some brothers, you know this already, but you know, we got to go back over this. These are coat of arms, which represents family crest and particular manners that MANORS, land masses that were occupied by lords. See? We're the people that call the people lords and my lady, and you watch Lancelot and King Arthur and Robin Hood and those folklore figures. Those were actual so-called black men that ruled the earth, the Knights of the Round Table, and all of these men, they ruled the Europe for 1,000 years. Otherwise, you wouldn't have these coat of arms throughout Germany and throughout France and throughout Spain, depicting men that look like you and I that occupied and that ruled Europe. You know? So let's go back to Revelation 20 and verse number 4. Because we got, like I said, we got a lot we got to get into. Let's see where I'm at with time. See that? Revelation chapter 20 and 4. And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Yahushua, and for the word of God, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands, and they lived and reigned with Hamashiach Yahushua 1,000 years. And quick disclaimer, Revelation 20 and 4 has nothing to do with Revelation 20 and 3. Revelation 20, here's how you understand Revelation 20. Verses 1, 2, and 3 all are in the same spirit. Then it stops at verse 3. And if you want to figure out what happened after verse 3, you got to go to verse 7. That's the way the Most High put it in there. You can't read verses 4, 5, and 6 and think that these are all in chronological order, right? That's why verse 2 ends that he was bound up 1,000 years, and then verse 7 jumps right into it. And when 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison. So Revelation, I'm going to say that again. In order to understand Revelation, the 20th chapter, you have to understand how the Most High put it in here. Verses 1, 2, and 3 are in order. Verse number 3 picks back up in verse number 7. Okay? And 4, 5, and 6 are in their own category. And that's why people stumble and fall, right? They stumble and fall. And they, well, what happened? Well, 1,000 years in a millennial reign. And then, okay, well, this happened. And you get all jammed up. And you have particular chapters that are like that in the Bible, man. You know, the 6th chapter, you know, the particular chapters in Song of Solomon, certain chapters, the Most High, he'll put in order. Then there are certain chapters where the Most High, you got to kind of figure that thing out. Revelation 20 and 4. And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. So these thrones are thrones that are for the elect, right? That's who these thrones are for. They were given authority to execute judgment. These men stood stiffly for the name of Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, and did not conform to the ways of America even until death. And they're going to live and reign with Yahushai 1,000 years. Now, let's go to Psalms 122 and 5 about these thrones. This is Psalms chapter 122 and verse number 5. For there are set thrones, the thrones of the house of David. So when John the Revelator saw these thrones, he saw various men of the elect sitting upon these massive thrones, right? So let's go to Matthew the 19th chapter. Let's get another precept. And we are going to sit upon thrones if we're part of that number. Huh? This is the last place you're going to sit in an office chair, a desk chair, a foldable chair, a lawn chair. All you're going to have in the kingdom is thrones, you know? So don't get used to how you're sitting right now. Don't get used to it. This is Matthew chapter 19 and verse number 28. Let's lock it in. Matthew 19 and 28. And Yahushua said unto them, verily I say unto you, that ye which have followed me in the regeneration, when the Son of Man shall sit in the throne of his glory, ye also shall sit upon 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. And he spoke to Peter, John, James, Andrew, Thomas, Philip, Nathaniel, etc. All of the 12, that they're going to put the 12 tribes in order and judge them. John saw that. These are the thrones that he saw. And he saw that they were given judgment. Right now, you go to court, you're dealing with your circuit court, your local court. You don't have any authority to give judgment. You're taking a judgment. You're taking 15 to life. You're taking probation before judgment. You're taking the plea deal. You're taking whatever you could get to see your family at the end of the day. Right? But in the days to come, John saw us giving them judgment. Obadiah saw that. Let's go to Obadiah. Right? Let's go to Obadiah, verse number 21. All right? About us giving judgment. Obadiah, verse number 21. And saviors shall come up on Mount Zion to judge the mount of Esau, and the kingdom shall be the Lord's. And this links up with Revelation 20. And I saw thrones. Right? So they're going to be in chains. And they're going to come after, they're going to be in chains. They're going to have their head down. They're going to get beat up. And we're going to be sitting upon thrones. Right? And we're going to judge them according to the law and divvy them out for slaves and put them to work at that set time. This is a major prophecy, man. So the saviors are the same ones that are sitting on the thrones. Let's go back to Revelation 20. And I saw thrones, this is Revelation 20 and 4. And they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Yahushua. So certain men are going to be beheaded. They're going to be killed. See, the Roman Empire, they beheaded people, man, straight up and down. They didn't have an electric chair. They didn't have lethal injection, right? They didn't have death by firing squad. If you were a Roman citizen, capital punishment was being beheaded. Paul was beheaded. He was a Roman citizen. If you weren't a Roman citizen, you were crucified or tortured some other strange, wicked way. But the Roman citizens were beheaded. The elect in America are modern day Roman citizens. You have citizenship here in modern day Rome. So your judgment is to be beheaded and put to death. Not everybody's going to get beheaded. Only a portion of men are going to be beheaded. But John saw those spirits when they went back up to the third heaven, who didn't take the mark of the beast and worship the beast and accept their philosophies and brand it in their mind that conform to their ways with their works. And they're going to live and reign with Yahweh Shai 1,000 years. Now, what does this mean? They lived and reigned with the Lord 1,000 years. Does this mean, at year 999, they're like, oh my God, we got one more year. Oh my God. Does this mean after the 1,000 year 1001, they don't reign anymore? They have to stop reigning? No. They're going to reign forever, right? And sometimes 1,000 years is literal. Sometimes it's a round number. Sometimes it's just spiritual, Let's go to the book of Psalms, chapter 90, right? Even when we went into the dark ages and the Renaissance, that was roughly 1,000 years. Wasn't an exact 1,000 year to the second, and then power was taken away. It's a rough time span, roughly 1,000 years, So it can be used as a number. I believe that's what I want. As a round number as well, a complete number. Psalms chapter 90 and verse number 4. For 1,000 years in thy sight are but as yesterday when it is past, and as a watch in the night. Why? Because the Most High is outside of time. 1,000 years to him, to 1,000 years to someone whose eternity is nothing. If you're eternal, 1,000 years is nothing to you. If you live, 80 years, 1,000 years is a long time. So you see how 1,000 years is just like a round, rough number of completion. Let's go to Ecclesiastes, chapter 6, and verse number 6. Ecclesiastes, chapter 6, and verse number 6. Yea, though he live 1,000 years, twice told, yet hath he seen no good. Do not all go to one place? So even if you lived 1,000 years, twice told, meaning a long time, if you haven't seen no good and you just die, that's vanity, right? That's pure vanity. So 1,000 years is a spiritual number that can mean completion or an indefinite amount of time. We know that those men who died in the Lord are going to rule with Yahweh Shai forever. Okay? How do you know that? Let's go to Daniel 7 and 18. Doesn't mean year 999. Oh my God, well, I got to go to work after this. It was good while it lasted. They got to take the crown off their head, get off the throne. No, right? That would be ridiculous. This is Daniel chapter 7 and 18. But the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. If you had any inclination that it was just forever, it's not. It's forever, even forever. You might have thought, okay, that's still a long time. It said and ever, right? So the Most High sealed it up, man. Right? Forever, forever, ever. Right? You know the song. So this is forever. Not just forever, even forever and ever. So yes, they're going to reign with the Lord for 1,000 years, but that's literally forever, even forever and ever. That's that 1,000 years. So you have to know when the 1,000 years are literal, and you got to know when the 1,000 years are an indefinite amount of time. Revelation 20 and 5. But the rest of the dead live not again until the 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection. Blessed and holy is he that hath part in the first resurrection. On such the second death hath no power, but they should be priests of God and of Hamashiach, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. So what does this mean? But the rest of the dead live not again until the 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection. So the first there's no fifth resurrection. Well, that's the first. What about the fifth? What about the third? Well, where's the ninth? And where's the 12th resurrection? You got the first, you got the second, you got the third. The first resurrection is speaking about when Yahushua returns and the elect are beamed up. That's the first resurrection, right? And we're going to touch on this. Let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 15. That's what I want, right? The first resurrection. This is 1 Corinthians chapter 15 and verse number 20. See that? It says the order of resurrection. So you have the first resurrection. All things have to be done in order, even the prophecies, right? Even, the resurrection, judgments. 1 Corinthians chapter 15 and 20. But now is Hamashiach risen from the dead and become the first fruits of them that slept, right? What does it mean he's the first fruits of them that slept? He's the first begotten of the dead. He's the first one to resurrect into an immortal body, right? He's the first fruits of them that slept. For since by man came death, by man came also the resurrection of the dead, right? So even Abraham believed that Isaac would be resurrected from the dead. You can read that in the book of Hebrews. It was always an understanding of our fathers of the resurrection. For as in Adam all die, even so Hamashiach shall all be made alive, but every man in his own order. Christ, the first fruits, afterward they that are Hamashiachs at his coming. So everybody is going to be resurrected in their order. You're going to have Yahushua, he's already resurrected. Then you're going to have men that fell asleep. They're going to be resurrected. Then you're going to have them which are alive and remaining. Then they're going to be resurrected. It's going to be order to this, right? Then you're going to have the children of the elect. They're going to come out and they're going to have those spiritual bodies. So all things are going to be done in order, right? All things are done in order. So when the Lord said the first resurrection, he's speaking about this right here. Afterward, they that are Christ or Hamashiach Yahushua's at his coming. That's the first resurrection, right? When Yahushua returns, men that are beamed up in the chariots that were once dead and even those that are alive, right? Let's go into the book of 1 Thessalonians, touching on the first resurrection. This is 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 and verse number 13. I'll read 13, right? Then we may go to John, the 5th chapter. But I would not have you to be ignorant, brethren, concerning them which are asleep. They gave sorrow not, even as others which have no hope, right? Don't worry about people that died in the truth, right? They're going to make it. That's what Paul is telling them. And he's about to explain. For if we believe that Yahushua died and rose again, even so them also which sleep in Yahushua will the Most High bring with him, right? For this we say unto you by the word of the Lord, that we which are alive and remain until the coming of the Lord shall not prevent them which are asleep. So if you survive Jacob's trouble, World War III, and you alive on the earth, that's fine. All praise to Yahweh Shema Shai. That's more than fine. But you're still going to have men that fell asleep. They're going to get their reward too, men that died. For the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout. This is the first resurrection. With the voice of the archangel and with the trump of God, and the dead in Hamashiach Yahushua shall rise first. So men that were martyred, beheaded, right? Those men are going to rise first. Then We which are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. Wherefore, comfort one another with these words. Right? So you're going to have the elect, they're going to be going through Jacob's trouble, going through that tribulation. And at any time, you're going to see Yahweh shall return, and you're going to see dead bodies. You're going to see those chariots come. They're going to beam up men, but you're not going to get beamed up first. And you're like, oh my God, am I going to get beamed up? Am I going to make it? What's going to happen? But you're going to see bodies out of the earth, out of the sea, out of the ground come up, and they're going to go into the chariots, the elect. And you're like, man, am I going to make it? Then that chariot beam is going to beam you up, and you're like, okay, I'm going up, and you're going to praise Yahweh Bashmel Shai. Then the missiles are going to fall on the earth, and the chariots are going to destroy the place, and you're going to look down, and you're going to see the destruction of your enemies, man. Right? That is the first resurrection. Right? That's all it's saying. So let's go back to that in Revelation 20. And why is it called the resurrection? Right? Let's go to Acts 24. Right? Acts 24 and 15. It reads, and have hope towards God, which they themselves also allow, that there should be a resurrection of the dead, both of the just and unjust. So the unjust, the wicked, they're going to rise again too. Who's the unjust? The wicked of our people, the wicked of the nations. They're going to rise again. And the just, men like Stephen, right? Men like Antipas, the faithful martyr, and other men in time to come and in time past who die in the Lord, they are the just. Wicked men are going to rise again, and righteous men are going to rise again, right? But they're going to have two different lots. This is Luke chapter 14 and verse number 14, right? Here's what Yahweh said, Luke 14 and 14. And thou shalt be blessed, for they cannot recompense thee, for thou shalt be recompensed at the resurrection of the just. That is the first resurrection. You have the resurrection of the just and the resurrection of the unjust. All right? So, let's go back to that. And Revelation 20. Right? Let's go back to that. This is Revelation chapter 20 and verse number 6. Blessed and holy is he that hath part in the first resurrection. On such the second death hath no power, but they shall be priests of the Most High and of Hamashiach, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. And what is this second death? Right? This second death represents the destruction by the chariots and by the missiles. Right? So if you get beamed up in that chariot, you're not going to die of the missiles and the chariots. How do you know that that's the second death? Let's go to Revelation 21. Right? Revelation 21 and 8. Here's a precept. Revelation chapter 21 and verse 8. Here's a precept for the second death. But the fearful and unbelieving and the abominable and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. So being destroyed by fire and brimstone, that is the second death. You had the first death by the flood. The second death is by fire. And it's also called the second death because it's part of the resurrection. Men that died in the Lord, they're going to rise again. And men that were wicked, the unjust, they were already dead. They're going to rise again and be destroyed a second time. That's another reason why it's called the second death. Because men are actually going to be destroyed a second time. You're going to have the resurrection of the unjust. Wicked men are going to come out the grave and be destroyed by Yahweh Bashmi Shai. That's in 2nd Ezra, the 9th chapter. The Lord said, the same shall know it after death by pain. Let's get that. And 2nd Ezra 9-12, right? I actually had some precepts written out, right? But I'm just going in the spirit, right? We're just going in the spirit and power of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua, right? This is 2nd Ezra, chapter 9 and 11. And they that have loathed my law, while they had yet liberty, and as when yet a place of repentance was open unto them, understood not, but despised it. The same must know it after death by pain. What was this pain coming from? The fire and brimstone. When is it coming? Well, it's coming after death. They may have already died, but after they died, they're going to go through pain again. That's another reason why it's called the second death. Let's go to Revelation chapter. I'm going to go back to the 21st chapter, but I want to go to Revelation, the 2nd chapter and 11. Okay. All right. This is Revelation chapter 2 and verse number 11. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches. He that overcometh shall not be hurt of the second death. So if you overcome Jacob's trouble, you overcome the pains, the endurance, the sufferings, your day-to-day struggles in his knowledge and his truth, you will not be hurt of the second death. You will be a partaker of the first resurrection. Right? You will be a partaker of the first resurrection. So I want to go back to this in Revelation 20:21, right? About the second death. Let's touch on that a little bit more. So again, it's called the second death because you had the first death by water and the flood, and the second death is by fire. But also, again, you have men that are already going to be dead, but they're going to rise again and be destroyed again a second time. All right. And we read that in Acts 24 and 15. You have the resurrection of the just and the unjust. The just are going to get beamed up in the chariots. The unjust are going to come out the grave and be destroyed again. So there's no escape, right? You can't commit suicide. I'm high from the Lord, I'm going to destroy myself. You think the Most High is going to have all these wicked men who got away with murder, who aren't part of this generation, who got away with genocides and wickedness and complete tortures and debauchery and decadence? You think they're going to get away with all of this, man? The Lord said he ain't deceived, man. For whatsoever man soweth, that shall he also reap. You're going to get it. You can't escape from the Most High. You descend into hell, he's there too, man. Now, there's a precept I want to get. 21:8. That's what I want. Salakia. Let's read this again, right? I want to touch on this about this second death. Revelation 21:8. But the fearful and unbelieving and the abominable and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars, meaning anybody not in the truth, shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. Now, let me say this, you are going to have a remnant of nations that aren't going to be completely destroyed because they're going to be reserved for slavery, right? Let's prove that. Let's go to Daniel, the 7th chapter. But everybody else, their days are over. Let's go to Daniel 7. This is the book of Daniel, chapter 7 and verse number 11. I beheld then, because of the voice of the great words which the horn spake, I beheld even till the beast was slain and his body destroyed and given to the burning flame. So this is the beast being destroyed, right? That Roman Empire, modern day Roman Empire, America, right? Daniel saw America destroyed. As concerning the rest of the beasts, meaning the rest of the nations, they had their dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and time. So not everybody's going to be destroyed. You're going to have a remnant of people that survived that destruction that are set up to be our future slaves. Their lives are going to be prolonged. Let's go to Revelation 9. So we're going to touch about in Revelation 21 when it says, shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. This lake of fire that burneth with fire and brimstone is not a literal, it's not a literal location. It's not a literal lake. Right? The lake of fire is just the destruction that Yahushua is returning with the chariots and by the missiles. Don't try to get too deep and don't try to, make it something that is not. All it is a metaphor for the destruction that Yahushua is returning with. All right, that's all it is. Now, it says this lake burneth with fire and brimstone. The fire and brimstone is coming from two things. It's coming from the chariots and the missiles. Let's talk about the missiles first. Let's go to Revelation 9. The fire and brimstone. Revelation chapter 9 and verse number 18. By these three was the third part of men killed, by the fire and by the smoke and by the brimstone, which issued out of their mouths. So when the nations shoot their missiles at America or throughout other parts of the earth, that's that fire and smoke and brimstone. The lake of fire, the source of the fire proceeds from the fire and the smoke and the brimstone, which issue from the missiles. And they're going to be shot in different parts of the earth. That's all the lake of fire is talking about. The destruction from the missiles or the chariots. So if I live in America, which is going to be completely destroyed, that is going to be the major hot spot, for lack of better terms, for the lake of fire, right? Because that's where all of the nations are going to shoot their missiles at. When you read Jeremiah 50 and 51, you read about even the 10 horns shall hate the whore, eat her flesh, make her desolate and naked, and burn her with fire. So America is going to be within itself a lake of fire, right? But also you're going to have other nations that are hit by the fire and by the smoke and the brimstone. If you are destroyed by that, then you're destroyed and you're partaker of the lake of fire. It's just a metaphor for the destruction of the missiles and the chariots. Now, that's why it says in Revelation 20 that that lake, the source of it is fire and brimstone. We showed you in Revelation 9 that fire and brimstone and smoke comes from the missiles. Now, where else does it come from? It also comes from the chariots. Let's go to Genesis, the 19th chapter. Let's prove that. This is Genesis chapter 19 and 24. Then the Lord rained upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah fire, and it's like a brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. The Lord then shoot ICBM missiles on Sodom and Gomorrah. He sent the chariots to rain fire and brimstone, right? They shot the lasers, and the aftermath of that was explosions and fire. And Sodom and Gomorrah essentially looked like a lake of fire, right? You can read about that in Jude. Now, let's link this up and prove that the Lord actually sent the chariots to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, because it rained upon them. See, when you cause it to rain, it turns into a flood, which would turn into, a large mass of water, which John called a lake. So if it's raining fire, it's going to turn the landmass into a flood of fire or a lake of fire. The Lord did that to Sodom and Gomorrah. He's going to do that to other parts of the earth, predominantly America, and also is going to be in the valley of decision, right? The valley of Jehoshaphat. Now, let's see where I want to go first. We can go to Jude, but let's go to Isaiah 13 chapter first, right? Let's go to Isaiah 13. Then I want to go to Jude. This is the book of Isaiah. This whole thing is good. This whole thing is good. Isaiah 13 and 19. right? Isaiah chapter 13 and 19. In Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees' excellency shall be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. So the same way he destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah is the same way he's going to destroy America. The Lord didn't send missiles. They weren't created in that time to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. So what was the fire and brimstone that destroyed it? It was the lasers that came from the chariots. That is the exact same way that America is going to be destroyed. So the Lord rained upon Sodom and Gomorrah fire and brimstone. He's going to rain upon this society fire and brimstone. Let's go to Jude. Right? Let's go to Jude. And I want to read about this. This is the book of Jude, chapter 1 and verse 7. Right? Jude chapter 1 and 7. Even as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities about them in like manner, giving themselves over to fornication and going after strange flesh, are set forth for an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire. Is Sodom and Gomorrah eternally on fire? Is it a hot spot, a region of eternal fire? No, it's not. It's not. You can go there now and walk. Archaeologists do it all the time, looking at the sulfur deposits and, digging up and finding things. You can go there now. It's not on fire. This is hyperbolic talk, exaggerated talk. When we use words like eternal or forever or everlasting, they're not always meant to be taken literal. Stop. You have to have that Hebraic mind, that ancient Israelite mind, that Jake mind. Tell the brother, man, I ain't seen you in forever. Forever? I don't get it. What do you mean forever? Well, that's how Edomites think. I heard this one Negro tell another Negro he ain't seen him in forever. Then I heard him on the phone said, I'm around the corner, but he's close. What do you mean he's around the corner? Then he said he hasn't seen him in a minute. I counted to 60. Then he saw him, but he said a minute. I don't get these. It's not literal. Jude said, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire as an exaggerated talking point for the destruction that the Most High sent to that region. He did that to Sodom and Gomorrah. He's going to put that same eternal fire back on the earth. It is not literal. Right? That's what it says. In Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees' excellency shall be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. So you would say, well, hold on. Well, Jude, it says it was eternal fire. Is it going to be an eternal fire? No. The Lord tells you after that fire goes out, then wild beasts are going to immigrate to this region and dwell there. Verse number 20. It shall never be inhabited. Neither shall it be, this Isaiah 13 to 20. Neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. Neither shall the Arabian pitch tent there. Neither shall the shepherds make their fold there. But wild beasts of the desert shall lie there. How can a wild beast live where there's eternal fire? And their houses shall be full of doleful creatures, and owls shall dwell there, and satyrs shall dance there. And the wild beasts of the islands shall cry in their desolate houses, and dragons in their pleasant palaces. And their time is near to come, and their days shall not be prolonged. So America is going to be destroyed by fire. And after a period of time, that fire is going to go out. And after that burning pitch is there, you're going to have wild lizards and desert creatures and owls and, vultures and buzzards that dwell in this land. It will not be on fire forever. But it will look like a lake of fire at the time of the destruction. He's going to rain upon the land fire and brimstone. We read that in Revelation 9. Let's go to Isaiah. We're going to hold that. Let's go to, I had another precept in mind, right? So, like, bear with me. Let's go to Isaiah. Actually, I want there it is. All praise to Yahweh. Revelation 14, right? Revelation chapter 14 and verse. We're touching on this lake of fire. It's not a literal place that's on the earth. It's just a metaphor for the destruction. Revelation chapter 14 and verse number 10. The same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. So if you worship the beast, have the mark of the beast in your hand or in your forehead, right? You accept the philosophies, you get down with the New World Order, you conform to this system, you're going to be destroyed by fire and brimstone. Where's the fire and brimstone coming from? 2 points, 2 sources. The missiles, we read that in Revelation 9, and the chariots, we read that in Isaiah 13. The same way he destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah is how he's going to destroy America. That's the source of the lake of fire. And the smoke of their torment ascendeth up forever and ever, and they have no rest day nor night, who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name. And this is all just poetic talk. They have no rest day nor night. No, it's literal. Okay, if this is literal, that means when the fire and brimstone hits America, that fire is going to be forever. And the people that are destroyed in America, they're going to be constantly tormented by an eternal fire. But we know that's not literal because the fire is going to go out and wild creatures are going to dwell here. So again, this is poetic talk. This is a hyperbole, an exaggeration. Let's pull up a hyperbole. Exaggerated elements or claims not meant to be taken literally. And this is the problem, man. This is a great problem in understanding prophecy or understanding the Bible. People that read certain things forever or eternal fire and where the worm dieth not and the fire is not quenched, and you start thinking like an Edomite or a Moabite. What the hell is going on? You pluck your beard out. Not understanding that we're a people of hyperboles and metaphors and allegories and similitudes, and we're in tune with the spirit of the Most High, right? So it's not meant to be taken literally. If you take it literally, you're going off. You might start believing in the hell and this eternal fire burning forever. It was never meant to be taken literal, right? This having no rest day nor night, it was never meant to be taken literal. And Jude, that eternal fire, never meant to be taken literal because it was never literally on fire forever. Surely brothers understand. Now, let's go into further with the lake of fire, right? This Isaiah chapter 34 and verse number 5, right? This Isaiah 34 and 5. It reads, let's start at verse number 5. For my sword shall be bathed in heaven. Behold, it shall come down upon Idumea and the people of my curse to judgment. So when the Most High said it's going to come down upon Idumea, he's not talking about the actual land of Edom. He's talking about the people. Who are the people of Idumea? The Edomites. Who are the Edomites? The so-called white man. Even though it says the land of Idumea, is really talking about the people. When you go to Ezekiel, the 35th chapter, let's read verse number 2. Let me see where I'm at with time. Okay, we're making good time. Ezekiel 35 and 2. Still got a lot we got to get into. Son of man, set thy face against Mount Seir and prophesy against it. What was the reason of prophesying against Mount Seir? Was it literally for the mountain? What good did the mountain do? What bad did the mountain do? Can mountains do good? Can they do evil? Why prophesy against the mountain? Because it's really going into the people. It's going into the people. So just because you read about a landmass doesn't mean that the Most High is targeting a land. Land can never do good or evil. So when the Lord is going to destroy Idumea, it's not talking about the actual land. It's talking about the people, right? The people of Idumea, the Edomites. These are the people of his cursed judgment. Verse number 6. The sword of the Lord is filled with blood. It is made fat with fatness, and with the blood of lambs and goats, with the fat of kidneys of rams. For the Lord hath a sacrifice in Bozrah, and a great slaughter in the land of Idumea. So the Lord is going to destroy America. Bozrah is the chief city in the land of Edom, which is a metaphor for America, which is the chief city amongst all of the Edomite kingdoms. How do you know that? Let's go to Revelation 17. Right? Let's go to Revelation 17. This is Revelation chapter 17 and verse number 18. I know I'm moving fast, right? But right, stay with me. It's like Revelation 17 and 18. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth. So America is that great city which reigns over the kings of the earth. They're likened into a city. The chief city that they're likened to is Bozrah. They're likened unto Bozrah. America's likened unto Egypt. America's likened unto Rome. America's likened unto Tyre in the book of Isaiah, the 23rd chapter, right? They're likened unto many kingdoms. Here, they just so happen to be spiritually called Bozrah. You have places on the earth that have spiritual names given to them based off of the characteristics of that place. Let's prove that. Revelation 11 and 8. And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. So this great city we read about in Revelation 17 and 18 that reigns over the kings of the earth, we know it's America, but it's spiritually called Sodom, and it's spiritually called Egypt. It's spiritually called Tyre. It's spiritually called Rome, right? It's also spiritually called Bozrah. It's spiritually called Teman, right? In Jeremiah 49, it's called Teman, you know? This is Jeremiah chapter 49 and verse number 7. Concerning Edom, thus saith the Lord of hosts, is wisdom no more in Teman? Is counsel perished from the prudent? Is their wisdom vanished? So Teman is another ancient Edomite city, just like Bozrah, just like Dedan. The Lord will use these different cities as a representation of the so-called white man. Now, Bozrah is the chief city of the land of Edom of old, right? Let's see if they have that. Like I didn't write any precepts out. I want to touch on this. Okay, Bozrah, shepherd of fortress, a town in Edom, right? A place in Edom. So Edom is the beast. Let's look at it in that fashion. Bozrah is the chief city of the beast, which is America, right? Capital of Edom. The ancient capital of Edom was Bozrah, now Busera, Jordan, right? So that's plain, right? The ancient capital city of the Edomites, right? It is the ancient capital city of the Edomites. And if you look at all of the Edomites in Australia, Edomites in South Africa, Edomites in Portugal, they're in Spain, they're in Russia. What is their chief city? Their chief place is America, right? So that's why the Most High said, I have a great slaughter in Basra, right? Because Basra is the chief city of the Edomites, which is America, okay? Right? So it's not actual Basra, but it's a metaphor for America. It's spiritually called this. Let's read it again. Isaiah 34:6. The sword of the Lord is filled with blood. It is made fat with fatness, with the blood of lambs and goats, with the fat of the kidneys of rams. For the Lord hath a sacrifice in Basra and a great slaughter in the land of Idumea. Right? And this is a sacrifice, man. All right. The only thing is, Yahushua being the high priest, after the order of Melchizedek, it's not going to do a literal sacrifice. The people are the sacrifice. Verse number 7. And the unicorns shall come down with them. Are these actual unicorns, actual rhinoceros, or particular goats? And is it literal? No, it's not literal. Are these actual? Is this an actual literal a bullock and a bull? No, it's not meant to be taken literal. And the unicorns shall come down with them, and the bullocks with the bulls, and their land shall be soaked with blood, and their dust made fat with fatness. But it is the day of the Lord's vengeance, and the year of the controversy of Zion. And the streams thereof shall be turned into pitch, and the dust thereof into brimstone, and the land thereof shall become burning pitch. Now, you're going to see very stark and very, 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 very strong similarities between Isaiah the 13th chapter and Isaiah the 34th chapter. They're saying the same thing. The only difference is in Isaiah 13, the Lord calls this place of destruction Babylon. In Isaiah 34, the Lord calls it Basra, but they're the same place. It's the same thing. The Lord just used two different names. And we're gonna read that, right? So the land is going to be destroyed by brimstone. What's causing the brimstone? We read that in Revelation 9, the missiles. We read it in Isaiah the 13th chapter, the chariots. Now check out verse 10. It shall not be quenched night nor day. Is that literal? Let's find out if this is literal. The smoke thereof shall go up forever, from generation to generation. It shall lie waste. None shall pass through it forever and ever. But the cormorant and the bittern shall possess it. The owl also and the raven shall dwell in it. So hold on. How is the fire going to be forever and ever? But now you got owls and ravens living in it. What kind of owls and ravens could these be that dwell in a land that is constantly on fire? It's not literal. Jake said it, man, I've been working all day and night. Does that brother mean that, man, I've been working all damn day? When he says I've been working all damn day, does that mean that you like, well, damn, hold on, brothers. It's 24 hours. I mean, did you get any sleep? You worked all day. I mean, brother, come on. No, when he said he worked all day, it meant a long time. All it means is a long time. So when it says it shall not be quenched night nor day, it just means a long time. What is that? What is that word we went into? Right? Here's a key word to understand the revelation. Hyperbole. Exaggerated statements or claims not meant to be taken literal. If it was meant to be taken literal, if it was literal Basra and literally on fire forever, you're not going to have wild desert creatures dwell there, right? I just want to type this in out of curiosity. Did the Hebrews use hyperboles? I've never looked this up before, but let's see what they say. See that? By Yahushua time, hyperbole was a technique used by some rabbis, right? Teachers of the day. Yahushua, though, particularly employed this technique often as a way of grabbing his audience's attention or to shock them into recognizing the deep truth he was asserting. Like when Yahushua said, you're going to be cast into everlasting fire, or the worm dieth not and the fire is not quenched. That was never meant to be taken literal. A camel going through the eye of a needle, like it says, that was never meant to be taken literal. You're going to be salted with fire. That was not meant to be taken literal. The people who took that literal, when the Lord said, pluck out your eye and cut off your right hand, I feel bad for those people, man. I guarantee it. Somewhere along the land of the living, you had a Negro, more than likely probably an Edomite, who plucked his right eye out, man. He probably cut his right hand off and mutilated himself. You got to understand that. I'm going to say it again, and I'm going to say it after this. You have to understand and read this Bible with a Hebraic mindset, with an ancient Eastern Semitic mindset. If you read this Bible with a Western philosophical mindset, like an Edomite, you won't get it. You're going to struggle. Let's read this again. By Yahushua's time, hyperbole was a technique used by some rabbis. The rabbis, the teachers of the day, Yahushua, though particularly employed this technique, often as a way of grabbing his audience's attention or to shock them. Like he said, you're going to, where the worm dieth not and the fire is not quenched. Let me get that. I believe that's in the book of Mark, right? I believe that's Mark, the 9th chapter. Worms, look, if a worm is constantly on fire forever, and that's a hell of a worm, right? The Lord doesn't have immortal worms where worms just don't die and they're constantly on fire. No, right? Mark chapter 9. Here's some hyperbolic talk. Mark chapter 9 and verse number 43. And if thy hand offend thee, cut it off. That's not literal. Don't cut your hand off. Take away what it's saying is take away the things that keep you away from the Most High, even if it hurts you. It is better for thee to enter into life maimed than to have two hands to go into hell and to the fire that shall never be quenched. That was used to put shock into you. Like, oh my God, what the hell? What's going on? Remember, another part of understanding hyperbolic talk and particular talking points of the Israelites is understanding geography and history. Outside of Jerusalem, remember, you had the Valley of Hinnom. So the Valley of Hinnom, aka Andor rather, the Valley of Gehenna was a burning place outside of Jerusalem where they would burn dead cattle, dead animals, trash, carcasses, and it was constantly burning. So it was a beautiful, very eloquent and fitting talking point for Yahushua to use that as a representation for burning. But it was the concept of hell and this eternal fire. It was never biblical. Only when men start taking things that aren't meant to be taken literal and they made it literal is when these doctrines came to be. Verse 44, Mark 9 and 44. Where the worm dieth not and the fire is not quenched. So that's not literal either. Worms die. Fire is quenched. Right? You don't have a worm that's constantly alive in fire. Go show, that's a hell of a worm. The Lord has immortal worms now. So we got to stop this. And if thy foot offend thee, cut it off. So don't cut your foot off. It is better for thee to enter into life than having 2 feet to be cast into hell, into the fire that never shall be quenched, where their worm dieth not and the fire is not quenched. Right? So this isn't literal. Okay. So Isaiah 34, it says, it shall not be quenched night nor day. That's also hyperbolic talk. That's these hyperboles. This is from WordPress. right? It says camels through needles, Jesus, exaggeration, and hyperbole. So even the scholars know that there's amongst our people, man, Jake is always exaggerating, man. Right? Jake is, you always exaggerated, man. See, like I used a few examples. I haven't seen you in a minute, man. I've been working all damn day, you know, and many other things. I can't really think of too much right now, right? But and many other things, man. Jake, you exaggerate on. All right. So let's read a little of this. I'm not gonna read this whole thing. It says in the Bible, Jesus uses exaggeration and hyperbole on numerous occasions as he connected with his listeners by expressing deep truths in a non-literal manner. He came from a Jewish tradition that was steeped in this technique of writing and speaking. Yeah, that's how we are as a people. We've always been like that, man. Jake, man, I'm about to die. It's hot as hell. When Jake says it's hot as hell, I'm about to die, what does that mean? I mean, it's very hot, right? It's 80 degrees. It might be 85, right? It might be pushing. If it's hot as hell, it's usually past 85. Jake don't say that when it's 60, when it's 7. Maybe it's 7, maybe it's 80, 80 up, 85. Usually 85 up is hot as hell. Is he talking about an actual place underground and it's as hot as the? No, it's just the temperature. The temperature is very hot, right? You are altogether beautiful, my love. There is no flaw in you. All right. And let's see this. Christ had a literal style of his own. The diction used by Hamashiach is quite curiously gigantesque. It is full of camels leaping through needles and mountains being hurled into the sea. Yeah, Yahushua said you could take a mountain and cast into the sea. That's not literal. All right. So we understand now. We understand about hyperboles, exaggerated talk, and having an ancient mind to understand these prophecies. Okay. And it was common. It was very common. Don't take this stuff literal. Isaiah 34:10. It shall not be quenched night nor day. And we're going to show you it's not literal. The smoke thereof shall go up forever. It's not going to go up forever. From generation to generation, it shall lie waste. None shall pass through it forever and ever. But the cormorant and the bittern shall possess it. The owl also and the raven shall dwell in it. And he shall stretch out upon it the line of confusion and the stones of emptiness. So you're going to have wild birds dwell there. This is the exact same thing as Isaiah 13. We read this in Isaiah 13. A brother called me and asked me about it on Wednesday evening. And I told the brother, when we went into these same precepts, right? And the brother said, you should do a video on it. Or one of the brothers said, you should do a video on it, right? So we're touching on it. Isaiah 34 is a parallel to Isaiah 13. They both speak about this fire being forever, but then it's not forever because they both speak of wild desert birds dwelling there. Only difference is Isaiah 13 is called Babylon. Isaiah 34 is called Basra. Isaiah 34:12. Slakia. I'm going to jump down for sake of time. The wild beast of the desert shall also meet with the wild beast of the island, and the satyr shall cry to his fellow. The screech owl also shall make her rest there, and shall find for herself a place of rest. There shall the great owl make her nest, and lay and hatch and gather under her shadow. There shall the vultures also be gathered, every one with his mate. Right? And let's go back to that in Isaiah 13. You see that it's going to be destroyed by fire forever, but then wild desert creatures are going to dwell there. See that again, Isaiah 13. See that? Isaiah 13:21. But wild beasts of the desert shall lie there, and their houses shall be full of doleful creatures, and owls shall dwell there. and satire shall dance there. What is this talking about? Babylon. What was Isaiah 34 calling it? Basra. Same thing. Both talking about America. Two different names, same prophecy. Now, touching more on the lake of fire. Let's go to Revelation chapter 21 again. Revelation chapter 21 and 8. But the fearful and unbelieving and the abominable and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. So the lake is not a literal lake. This is not meant to be taken literal. This is just a metaphor of the destruction that's coming from the chariots and the missiles. That's the second death. Now, this destruction isn't just going to rest upon modern day America, Babylon the Great. Isaiah 34 calls America Basra. Isaiah 13 calls it Babylon. This destruction is also going to be in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, right? Let's go to 2nd Ezra 13. Let's read that. But it's not going to be forever. We're going to read this. Ezra never described it as a forever thing. Second Ezra chapter 13. I don't want to read this. Where I'm at with time. See that? All right. Let's see. I mean, this whole thing is good. Okay, let's read this. Isaiah 13 and 10. This is Yahushua returning to destroy the nations in the so-called Middle East, right? In Revelation 19, you read about the beasts and the kings of the earth that are ready to make war with Yahushua. So this is the same thing, right? 2nd Ezra 13 and 10. But only I saw that he sent out of his mouth, as it had been a blast of fire, and out of his lips a flaming breath. It wasn't his literal lips, right? It's not literal. We'll read on. And out of his tongue he cast out sparks and tempests. Oh, his tongue. How did the Lord do it? He opened his mouth. He shut. No. See, your mouth is a cavity, right? I'm not talking about in your teeth. A cavity is a hole, right? Let's pull this up. Cavity definition. An empty space within a solid object, a chamber, a hollow, a hole. So when it said he sent out of his mouth, he's speaking about where the lasers are being shot forth from the chariots. There's this hole, this device that's shooting out the chariots. But metaphorically, not literally, metaphorically, it's called his mouth. Like a cavity. The Lord says he's going to judge the nations with a sharp sword that cometh out of his mouth. Let me get that. With it, he should smite the nations. Let me get that. Revelation 19. Right? Revelation chapter 19 to 15. And out of his mouth goeth the sharp sword. That's not literal. That with it he should smite the nations. And he shall rule them with the rod of iron. And he treadeth the winepress of the fierceness and the wrath of the Almighty God. There's not an actual winepress. The sword that he's going to destroy the nations with is not a literal sword, but it represents the judgment of the law. There are judgments for each transgression. The main judgment that the Most High is going to give them is the fire and brimstone. He's not literally going to take a sword out of his mouth. So you see mouth, right here, but it's not his literal mouth. It's speaking about what's coming out of the chariots. I'm going to read this again from the top. 2nd Ezra 13 and 10. But only I saw that he sent out of his mouth, as it had been a blast of fire, and out of his lips a flaming breath, and out of his tongue he cast out sparks and tempests. This is in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, right? In the Middle East. And they were all mixed together. The blast of fire, the flaming breath, the great tempest, and fell with violence upon the multitude, which was prepared to fight, and burnt them up every one, so that upon a sudden of an innumerable multitude, nothing was to be perceived, but only dust and smell of smoke. When I saw this, I was afraid. So in the valley of Jehoshaphat, the valley of decision, right? It was nothing but dust and a smell of smoke, right? When the Lord destroys the nations, in the battle of Armageddon, Jehoshaphat, is all going into the same thing, right? It's all going to the destruction that Yahweh Shah is going to bring upon the nations and that region. It's just going to be dust and a smell of smoke. It's not going to be there forever. It may say forever and ever or eternity or everlasting, but those things are never meant to be taken literal. All right? They're never meant to be taken literal. So that lake of fire is not a literal location forever. It's just a metaphor for the destruction. It's going to hit America, and it's, once Yahweh Shah and the angels destroy America, it's also going to hit that region of the Middle East. Let's just type in Valley Jehoshaphat on the map. Right? Let's pull this up. See if they give us a map. See that? Let's see if we get a good map. May not get a good one, right? I probably should have had one prepared earlier. Let's see. Bear with me. Let's see if they got one right here. I'll just go back up because it seems as though maybe the one at the top, a little older, but that's okay, right? So you see the Valley of Jehoshaphat right here, right? Right in this region. Let's see if we get a better map. That may be hard for brothers. So the point is, it's right outside Judea, Jerusalem, rather, right? Right outside Jerusalem. Now, right outside Jerusalem, you had a burning pit called Gehenna, right? Let's pull up Gehenna. Gehenna, some scholars call it, or men call it. What is Gehenna? Burning fire, right? See what they got it. The Valley of Hinnom, named Gehenna in the Greek, lies just outside the city of Jerusalem. So prophetically, Armageddon or Megiddo, Jehoshaphat, Megiddo's an actual city, Jehoshaphat's an actual place, but they're both used in two different prophecies to describe one event, which is the destruction that Yahweh Shah is coming with to destroy the armies of the nations, right? So the Valley of Hinnom, named Gehenna in the Greek, lies just outside the city of Jerusalem. During Yahweh Shah's time, it was the city's garbage burner. Its fires were kept continually burning an everlasting lake of fire. To fully consume all things dumped there, brimstone used to be added to fuel the incineration, like bitumen and tar and pitch. Different fuel sources were used to keep that fire burning. But you see it being used as a lake of fire. That's why Yahweh Shah would use that as a talking point. But it was never just this place on the earth that's constantly on fire. Okay? Let's see. Gehenna, eternal lake of fire. Right? Now you can read this. Let's go to Joshua real quick. So now we're gaining some understanding. Most High willing, right? This is Joshua. I want to get this. This describes the land of Judea, right? The cities given to the tribe of Judah. Okay, this is Joshua chapter 15 and verse 8. And the border went up by the valley of the son of Hinnom unto the south side of the Jebusite, the same as Jerusalem. And the border went up to the top of the mountain that lieth before the valley of Hinnom westward, which is at the end of the valley of the giants northward. So right outside of Jerusalem, you had an eternal burning place, Gehenna, the valley of Hinnom. It was a fire that constantly burned, which became a talking point for the destruction of the wicked. But it was never meant, it was never meant to be taken literal. Okay? And we may have to do a part 2 on hell and these different things. Because I may not have the time to go into it today. But let's talk about Gehenna, eternal lake of fire. All right. Let's see. It reads, now this is I've never been to this site, but it says Christianity original, right? Let's see what they say. Let's see if they on point, if they're not on point. We studied Sheol and Hades earlier. That Shawa'al in the Hebrew, it means the pit or the grave. Hades was a so-called Greek god of the underworld, right? And the modern day concept of hell has some roots in Greco-Roman mythology, right? It reads, which other word is translated as hell in the New Testament? It's Gehenna. It's translated as hell 12 times. If Gehenna denotes hell, we can actually book a flight and go to hell, right? So the Lord said that the people are going to be cast into the lake of fire. If there's an actual place of fire, let's say I'm a wicked man, and this is what I told the brother. The brother called me or we was talking on Wednesday, all right? And I was going into it, and I said, well, look, if this is an actual place and I'm a wicked man somewhere in LA, I'm a drug dealer, I'm a murderer, right? And the Lord said, whosoever was not found written in the book of life shall be cast into the lake of fire. How am I getting from LA to the lake of fire? How are the wicked Israelites getting from wherever they are to the lake of fire? How are they getting it? They're not getting beamed up in a chariot. The Lord isn't going to fly them out on a one-way ticket to hell, to destruction. So it's not a literal thing, because the wicked are going to be destroyed in the day of judgment when Yahweh returns, by the chariots or by the missiles. So the Lord isn't going to have to fly them out to this place that's on fire. Or the wicked ain't going to be up there in the chariot. They got the wicked chariot, and all of the wicked are right there fighting each other. Then the Lord hit the eject button, and they fight each other, and they fall out into this fire. This isn't mythology. So they say you can fly there, right? It's a real place in Israel. That's why translations like the YLT render it as Gehenna instead of hell. When Yahweh Shai says the fire in Gehenna, it's like a New Yorker saying the water in Brooklyn. The valley of Hinnom, named Gehenna in Greek, lies just outside the city of Jerusalem. During Yahweh Shai's time, it was the city's garbage burner. We read this earlier. Its fires were kept continually burning in an everlasting lake of fire to consume all things dumped there. Brimstone was to be added to fuel the incineration. It ensured total destruction. So, what was the symbolic meaning of Gehenna? Old Jerusalem's lake of fire at Gehenna illustrated the God-assured destruction of the impure entities of this earth in the future. To prevent pollution of New Jerusalem that would symbolize God's obedient people, scriptures directly explain this figurative, not literal, this figurative burning of wicked components in the lake of fire as the second death. So all it is a figurative way of describing the destruction of the wicked. Okay, it's very simple. Now, let's go to Revelation 20. Right? So now we're kind of winding down. Revelation chapter 20 and verse number 7. Where I'm at. Okay, Revelation 20 and 7. Let's see. Okay, I'll read 7. And when 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison. Now remember, if you were watching from the beginning, verse number 7 picks directly back up from verse number 3. Right? Verse number 7 picks up from verse number 3. And when 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison. So during the Renaissance, the so-called white man came back into power. Right? And shall go out to deceive the nations that are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. And they went up on the breadth of the earth, and compassed the camp of the saints about, and the beloved city, and fire came down from God out of heaven and devoured them. So when these nations, Russia, Iran, are allies, you read about Persia, Lud, all these nations, the Collective Security Treaty Organization, your RSII alliance, the military arm of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, all these modern day military factions and alliances are going to come around to destroy the Israelites and destroy the city, right? The people. At that time, when you read Ezekiel 38, that evil thought, Yahweh Shah is going to destroy them. And those dead bodies are going to fall upon the land. And the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are, and shall be tormented day and night forever and ever. And all this is saying it's the same way that America was destroyed. It's the same way that Russia and its allies and those nations in the Middle East are going to be destroyed. So you see that the lake of fire is not just one place that rests in one location. It's an event. It's a symbolic way of Yahweh Shai destroying the nations. He did it in Basra, in modern day Basra, America. We read that in Isaiah 34 and Isaiah 13. Now we're reading how he's going to do that to Gog and Magog in the so-called Middle East. Verse number 11. And I saw a great white throne, and him that sat on it, from whose face the heaven and the earth fled away, and there was no place found for them, meaning their rulership was taken away. And I saw the dead, small and great, stand before God, and the books were opened. And another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged out of those things which are written in the books according to their works. Now, this judgment event that happens, right, is going to happen at the exact same time that Yahweh Shah returns. I'm going to repeat it. Then I'm going to say it again. This judgment event that we're reading about is going to happen at the exact same time that Yahweh Shah returns. This judgment event of the dead, the small and the great, standing before God is going to happen at the exact same time that Yahweh Shah returns. Do not allow Christianity to pollute your mind to believe that there's going to be a massive line of individuals with halos and wings waiting to appear before the Heavenly Father to receive a judgment. No, the judgment's already set. In the book of Daniel, it says the judgment was set and the books are open. Man. We get that in Daniel 7. That's a mean verse right there. Right? That's a stone cold verse, right? Daniel chapter 7 and verse number 9. Well, I'll read 10. I'll get straight to the point. Daniel 7 and 10. A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousands ministered unto him, right, within the angels. And 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judgment was set and the books were open. So the judgment's already set. Who's going to make it? Who's not going to make it? It's predestination. The book of life has a name of all of the elect names written in it, along with other details of your life. Read Psalms 139, right? From, when you were formed and when you were created. Psalms 56, if I'm not mistaken, goes into the tears you have, the hairs are numbered. All of that is a very detailed heavenly account of you, if you're the elect. Right? So this judgment day is when Yahweh Shah returns. You're not going to have multiple judgment days. This is all one event. Don't take parables and try to tie them. Be careful, rather, I'll say it like this. Be careful taking parables and tying them into prophetic events, because there are multiple parables in the Bible. You read about the wheat and the tares. Okay, well, if the wheat and the tares is literal, where the tares are burnt up, Matthew 25 is literal, then what's another parable of destruction? Let's see, Luke 16, that's another parable of destruction. Luke 19, right? That's a parable of destruction. All of the parables of destruction are meant to be taken as literal events. So be careful when you do that, right? Because you're gonna get jammed up in the chronology of prophecy. Like I always say, there's one thing to understand prophecy, it's another thing to understand the chronology of prophecy. So at this set time in Revelation 20 and 12 is when the elect are beamed up, when the right and when the wicked are destroyed. It's not 1,000 years after people are ruling on the earth. Then Yahweh Shah says, you know what? Let's resurrect the righteous and the wicked and judge them. Judgment day is when Yahweh Shah returns. And the sea gave up the dead which were in it, and death and hell delivered up the dead which were in them, and they were judged every man according to their works. And death and hell were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death, right? So death and hell, meaning the grave, the concept of death, is going to be destroyed for the elect, of course, right? How do you know that? Let's go to Hosea. That's what it means, death and hell. The grave, I believe that's Hosea 14. The grave and death is going to be destroyed for the elect. Hosea, this is what I want. Maybe 13, right? Salakia. Quick precept. Now I have to find this. Here it is. Hosea chapter 13 to 14. I will ransom them from the power of the grave. I will redeem thee from death. O death, I will be thy plagues. O grave, I will be thy destruction. Repentance shall be hid from mine eyes. So the Lord is going to destroy death and the grave. He's going to metaphorically cast it into the lake of fire, which means once we have our immortal bodies in the day of judgment, death and the grave will no longer have dominion over us. That's what this means. Death and hell were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. And whosoever was not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire. So the 2/3 are going to be destroyed, and the remnant of the nations. The remnant of the other nations that survived the destruction are going to be our slaves, right? So if the lake of fire is an actual place in the Middle East, how are the wicked going to get there? Are they going to get flown out? Are they going to be in a chariot? Are they taking a plane? Are they taking a boat? All it is a metaphor for the destruction. Now, here's a precept proving that there is going to be a remnant of the nations that survived the destruction. Revelation 9 and 20. And the rest of the men which were not killed by these plagues. So they weren't killed by the fire and the smoke and the brimstone. Right? That were not killed by these plagues, yet repented not of the works of their hands, that they should not worship devils and idols of gold and silver and brass and stone and of wood, which neither can see, nor hear, nor walk. Neither repenteth they of their murders, nor of their sorceries, nor of their fornication, nor of their theft. So they're going to survive that destruction. Many are going to be in these underground bunkers and these deep underground military bases. They're going to be sought out and destroyed. So the lake of fire for the seventh time is a metaphor for the destruction that the Most High is going to bring to the wicked. So with that, we're going to close up, giving, of course, all honor and glory to Yahweh. By Shema Mashiach, Wamalak Yahushai, Most High willing you are edified. Kwam Yasha. Shalom. Hey, keep the Sabbath holy, man. No buying on the Sabbath, no selling, no cooking, no sex on the Sabbath, no speaking your own pleasures, no doing your own words. Keep the Sabbath holy. Kwam Yasha. Shalom.